Good evening, everyone. Call to the order the October 22nd regular meeting of the Louisville School Division Board of Trustees. First off, we have regrets from Trustee Polachek for this evening. In our meetings with the LRSD Land Acknowledgement, the Louisville School Division, LRSD, brings together a community of schools on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe in Anahuac, Dakota. Our division is located on the national homeland of the Red River Métis. We recognize that Manitoba is also the traditional land of the Anishinaabe and Dene. Respect the treaties made on this land and acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and present, and dedicate ourselves to authentic alliances with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and cooperation. We recognize and honor Shoal Lake 40 First Nation, the source of Winnipeg's life-sustaining drinking water, as well as the treaty territories that provide electricity that powers daily activity throughout the province and beyond. We'd like to welcome everyone participating in this hybrid meeting. Board meetings follow a formal structure where the work of the board is conducted in a public setting. It gathers parents, students, staff, and other community members. As chair, it is my duty to preserve order and decorum at all times. All in-person and verified virtual attendees are reminded to observe the procedural bylaws to engage in a respectful and orderly manner. We'd like to remind everyone there is a 15-minute public question period at the end of the meeting when verified virtual participants and verified in-person participants can bring forward questions for clarification regarding items on today's agenda. If your questions are not related to tonight's agenda, please reach out to the division by emailing us through our website. Finally, please be aware that we audio record board meetings for accuracy, that a link to the live stream and the meeting will be made available on the division's website. Unless otherwise approved, other photographs, personal recordings, audio, visual, or otherwise are not permitted. Affirmation of our vision and mission. Our vision is for all members of our community to excel as caring, confident, capable, and resilient lifelong learners, contribute to a democratic and sustainable world. Our mission is to provide a safe, inclusive, and engaging environment where personal and collective learning are valued and each of us reaches our full potential. Before we move into the body of work, just personally mention, I do have make an announcement of a conflict of interest, potential conflict of interest, because my daughter is an education student and her practice teaching will be in an LRSD school. Just found that out this week, so put that on the record. Thank you. The approval of the minutes, agenda and minutes, approval of our agenda for a regular board meeting, October 22nd, 2024. Need a mover and a seconder that the October 22nd agenda for the regular board meeting be approved. By Trustee Walker, seconded by Trustee Nordheim. All those in favor? Votes coming up. For those in attendance who vote electronically, sometimes the first one's a little slow. Sorry, 2 seconds. Approved. It should be all this. Approved. Very good. And now we move to the approval of the regular board meeting, the minutes from regular board meeting of October 1st, 2024. We've heard of no edits or changes that have been requested. So the October 1st minutes will be accepted as distributed. We now move on to the finance and audit section. Carry forward report from Secretary Treasurer Rudnicki. Provide context to the proposed board motion. Board approve the carry forward report as provided. I'll turn it over to Secretary Treasurer Rudnicki.
Thank you. Once a year, I provide a carry forward report for consideration for the board. And what this relates to is any unspent budgeted amounts by departments, schools, as well as any unspent grants for the year. This year, all I am requesting is carry forward of $66,000 in unspent grants. And this relates to the Lighthouse program and this BSIP grant. So that is the only request for this year.
So the motion is that the board approve the carry forward report as provided. Seconder Walker, trustee Nemeth. Any questions or comments regarding, yes?
The question, Lighthouse program, and what was the second one?
The BSIP grant, and so this is additional funds that we receive the provincial government to support Indigenous education.
Question, all those in favor? And that is carried, thank you. Now we turn to the stars of our evening, our audit report for the 2023-2024 school year. I'd like to thank auditors and our financial team for their tremendous work. Scott Sissons is here from KPMG, as well as Cassie. Secretary Treasurer Nikki will review the financial statements for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. Over to you again.
Thank you very much. So I will turn it over to our external auditors from KPMG, Scott Sissons and Cassie Allen, to comment on their audit findings. And then subsequent to that, I will present the financial statements.
Perfect. Thank you, Jamie. Good evening, trustees, management, and guests. As already noted by Chair Sigurdsson, my name is Scott Sissons. I'm your audit partner with KPMG. So with respect to your June 30th, 2024 consolidated financial statements, I'm pleased to say we're in a position to issue a clean opinion on those financial statements dated today with the board's approval. We have successfully completed all of our audit procedures and have no findings that I would want to bring forward to the board this evening. And we had full cooperation from management and appreciate everyone's efforts in getting the audit conducted. Thank you.
And I should point out that the board met privately with our auditors earlier and received a report earlier than that. So we have fully gone through all of the findings that are in the report.
Perfect. So our financial statements for the year is going to be centered, presentation will be centered around the operating fund. That is our scheduled revenue expended expenses and accumulated surplus as these form budget and budget conversation. And so for the 2024 school year, we had revenue from provincial funding of $155,035.426. That represents 67% of our revenue. And that relates to funds we receive for operating, so our operating grant, as well as our education and early childhood learning grants. So those are additional grants that we receive over and above our operating grant, as well as other provincial funding like our education property tax credit and school tax rebate. Next, we have our federal government fund funding, and that is $283,439. And this funding is a cost recovery for costs incurred to support the newcomer program that we run at the Rennie DeLorme Center. Next is our municipal government funding, which is $874,261, or 27.5% of funding. And this represents school taxes received from property owners in our catchment for the 2023-2024 school year. Next, on the revenue lines are our money that we receive from other school divisions, and that's $468,626. These funds received from other school division relates to support for out of division students who come and attend our schools. We receive funding for our First Nation students of $72,600, and private organizations and individuals, that revenue is $8,539,660. And this funding relates to fees we receive for our international student program, adult education fees, student fees, facility rentals, transportation, and parking fees. And finally, for revenues, we have other sources of $3,364,038. And this represents funding that we received for interest revenue, as well as one-time revenue sources such as rebates, as well as insurance recoveries. So when you add all those revenue sources up, we received $231,638.49. On the expense side, we have regular instruction expenditures of $126,627,235. And what those expenses reflect are costs related to K-12 classroom costs, such as teacher expense, educational assistance, textbooks, related supplies, services, and equipment, such as desks, chairs, tables, audio-visual equipment, computers, and other related costs. Next, we have expenditures of $52,949,672 for student support services. And these costs consist specifically related to students who have exceptional learning needs, as well as student services, as well as student service costs with teachers. Next is our Adult Learning Center. We have costs of $1,361,919. And that is specifically costs associated with our LRATC, our Louis Riel Arts and Technology Center. And specific to that is the cost to support adult learning. Next on our expenditure list is community education and services. Our costs are $2,850,468. And this relates to costs associated with providing community services, as well as supports for community groups and individuals, as well as pre-kindergarten. So these costs are closely tied with all the services and programming we have at Rennie DeLorme Center, as well as throughout other schools in the division. Next, we have divisional administration expenses, and that is $7,681,340. And that expenditure is specifically related to administrative costs, including Board of Trustees, superintendents, and Secretary Treasurer Department expenditures. Instructional and other support services, those expenditures are $9,854,186. Those costs consist of support services for students and teaching staff, as well as educational processes such as libraries, media centers, professional development, and curriculum and development. Next, we have transportation of pupil expense of $6,009,146. And that is exactly what it states. It's costs associated with transportation of pupils, including personnel, as well as costs relating to busing. We have operations and maintenance costs of $23,509,512, and that's related to costs associated with operation and maintenance expenditures, as well as salaries related to incurring those expenditures. And finally, our fiscal expenses is $3,995,701. And what that relates to is our payroll tax, as well as any interest and bank charges. And so the total expenditures for the period is $234,839,179. When you compare that to our revenues of $231,638,049, we have a current operating deficit for the year of $3,201,130. Our next line item is what we call below the line item, which is our non-vested sick leave expenditure. And what that is accounting for any sick leaves over and above allocated estimates for the year. And so that was actually a recovery for the year. So we had less sick leave than we expected of $446,347. And so our total operating deficit for the year is $2,740,000 $754,783. We take additional costs for transferring operating costs that relate to capital projects of $3,350,072. And our final current year deficit for the year is $6,104,855. We started the year off with an accumulated surplus of $6,653,176. And so our closing accumulated surplus is $548,321. And so that essentially outlines our revenue and expenditures for the current.
Thank you. Have any questions or comments on the audit or this information that we just received? Then we can call the question. Motion is that the financial statements for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024 be approved. Have a mover and a seconder for that, please? The Palmquist. Carrier. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you all for your time. Thank you very much. Moving on now to LRSD news. We have the news from the Board of Trustees, which will be provided this week by Trustee Nordholt.
Thank you. On October 15th, our LRSD community celebrated the 2024 choral celebration at the Centennial Concert Hall. The annual event celebrates not only music education, but the partnership between LRSD and the United Way Winnipeg. Junior, intermediate, and senior choirs worked with guest conductors in preparation for a wonderful musical experience. It's always stunning to hear the finished product, but it is beyond singing learning that is so impressive. As with all music education, the benefits include building community, persevering through challenges, learning a new language, and the exhilaration of creating something that reaches others in a profound way. The musical selections all reflected LRSD in harmony with the United Way. So many thanks to the music teachers who took on this task, and also we appreciate the large number of parents, friends, and family members who attended, along with school board members and MLAs Tyler Blasco, Renee Cable, and Mike Moe. Pardon me, Mike Moyes, sorry. Congratulations to the varsity girls from Vanessa Bay who worked hard to capture the bronze medal at the 4A cross country championships, and congrats to the Glenlawn varsity boys who achieved a silver medal. The volleyball season is in full swing, and we wish all teams from grade 7 to grade 12 best of luck and encouragement to do your best. The next 2 weekends will see the Centratel Invitational tournaments held at Dakota and Glenlawn. In addition, at Glenlawn, on Thursday of this week, the Nikki Redicott volleyball tournament will be held, and they have a record-setting 48 teams taking part, all participants from Glenlawn's student population. And as a last addition, the CTV news article on ATC's Irene Mercado, who teaches in the Power Mech area, was outstanding, and she did an excellent job of promoting the program, but also the increase in females taking part in that program at ATC. So congratulations to her. Thank you.
Thank you. All wonderful news. Comments or questions on that? No, thank you, Trustee Nordheim. We'll pass it on then to news from the senior leadership team. Assistant Superintendent Jean-Paul will give us news.
So I'm going to start with some highlights from some of the schools in the Glenlawn family of schools. September 30th was almost a month away, but I think important that we recognize this work that our schools are doing around truth and reconciliation, and that day is one day that they recognize it, but it's also about the ongoing work and recognition through our multi-year strategic plan. So here we've got some photos of Minnetonka School. And so the Indigenous language team is housed out of Minnetonka School effective this fall, and this is a beautiful partnership. Minnetonka School has a beautiful courtyard that has been a bit neglected over the last few years. And so last year there was some reimagining of that space that began with the welcoming of the Indigenous education, our Indigenous language team to that school. It was a perfect opportunity to get some students involved in the planting of medicine and the team around those medicines, as well as some other lessons and learning that the entire school participated in, led by the Indigenous language team. And so the Minnetonka school community is feeling very fortunate to have these folks working and amongst them on a daily basis. Glenwood School has continued their learning around truth and reconciliation, which was highlighted with some school-wide activities as well on September 27th. And so classes discussed how should school feel. And so this is about, building into the school's ongoing planning. And so students from across the school participated in assemblies that were hosted by a grade 1-2 and a 3-4 classroom with some shared learning, as well as community connections that were made. And so displays that were intended to spark conversation, not just with the students, but for the folks who might be passing by the school and families as well who are picking up their students. That's shown in the next picture where students placed their handprint in front of the school and families were encouraged to visit the display and reflect together on the meaning of this Day of Truth and Reconciliation. The professional development at Glenwood also was in support of the divisional multi-year strategic plan, looking at Indigenous language, Indigenous culture, land-based learning. And so the staff headed out earlier this year to learn outside and to look at the Mamatowiswin Indigenous Learning Framework and bringing that framework into their ongoing discussions around literacy, diversity, equity, and inclusion, wellness, and community connections. And so I look forward to some great work happening at Glenwood, highlighting the connections between those things. St. George School also had some student learning led by students. And so there will be some new artwork and focusing on at school children should feel. And so this is a tie into our multi-year strategic plan, looking at student voice and agency, as well as that feeling of belonging. And so there's a writing project, All About Me, which celebrates the unique perspectives of each student within their classroom community. And so if you are visiting St. George in the next little while, this art installation will be in the staircase leading to the grade 3, 4, 5 wing once it's completed. The next slide just shows some student leaders who were in charge of the assembly that took place, recognizing September 30th. And so whereas this would be a place that the grade 7 and 8s typically might have led, with the grade 7 and 8s having moved to Windsor, it's creating new leadership opportunities for the grade 5, 6 students at St. George. And so a big thank you to the teacher librarian, Mr. Oschuk, who spent a great deal of time working with students to prepare them for this leadership opportunity. On a bit of a different note, some celebration around Glenmont Collegiate and their assessment-driven action plan. And so there's a lot of interest that continues from schools around the province, around the work that Glenmont Collegiate is doing around assessment. And so it's a little bit hard to see in this picture, but this is a graphic representation of their 8-step planning around assessment. And so it starts with initial assessments of students, and then it looks at data organization, which include things like benchmarking, strategic and intensive planning, tiered planning, also using assessment language of mastery, progressing, applying, or emerging. That moves on to graphical representation. And so looking at tools like Excel to record names, scores, and benchmarks, and then providing graphics to visualize student learning. It moves on to some of the other areas in terms of analysis of needs, instructional planning, again, looking at the tiers of that. So what is the whole class instruction? And what are the small group interventions? And then are there students that require intensive one-on-one interventions? And moves on to what is the progress monitoring that's occurring on a daily basis. So by following this structured approach, which is represented in this flow chart. It provides a picture of the assessment-driven instruction plan that's being implemented on an ongoing basis at Glenlawn Collegiate.
Thank you very much. Questions, or comments on these more news that we've received? Thank you very much. Move on to some staffing information. We have a personnel update. The principal for École Sedge Creek Buena Vista. Our superintendent.
We interviewed colleagues who applied for the position last week of leading the new school community that is going to take shape, serving the Sage Creek and Buena Vista communities in French immersion in grades K to 8, and would like to recommend to the board Cam Johnson's appointment to this position, starting in January.
Okay. Questions or comments on that? Perhaps you could just give us a brief survey of where he's been.
Yeah.
Where he served at us.
So I've known Cam Johnson for a long time. I was a teacher when he was a student at Collège Jeanne Sauvé in the 90s. And he's been a teacher in LRSD. He's been a vice principal and a principal now for some time. His present position is principal at École Saint-Germain.
So the motion is that Cameron Johnson be appointed as principal at École Sedge Creek Buena Vista. That's a placeholder name, by the way, if anyone's interested. Effective January 1st, 2025. Mover to seconder, Nemeth, Walker. Call the question. Those in favor? Looks like that's carried. Very good. Congratulations, Cam. They'll make a fine principal of our new school. And we have another appointment, principal update for École Georges McDowell. And Superintendent Michalik will provide more information on this.
So to provide context again to this extraordinary opportunity that presents, we don't typically see principal appointments in October for January, but here you accepted Nicole Nader, the principal at École Georges McDowell's leave request for January. And so we're left with a vacancy to fill, and again interviewed last week. And we are recommending Tyler Malloy be appointed as principal at École Georges McDowell effective January 1st. Tyler Malloy is also someone I've known for some time, was a student when I taught at Collège Jeanne Sauvé in the 90s. And has been a teacher and a vice principal and principal in schools in LRSD for some time. His most recent appointment is as principal at École Marianne Gabory.
Both of these individuals are vice principals of children, and they both seem to think it's the same person. So no questions or comments on this appointment? I will call the question. Tyler Malloy be appointed as principal at École Georges McDowell effective January 1st, 2025. Trustee Garrier, seconded by Trustee Nemeth. All those in favor? Good, looks like the vote is carried. Congratulations to Tyler. New job. Now we move to senior leadership team information to the board, beginning with the leadership team retreat, which took place 2 days this week. I had the honor and pleasure to attend for part of it. It was wonderful to see all our great leaders working together and learning together. I'll pass this over to our superintendent. Yes.
Thank you. Well, trustees, you've seen the agenda we had planned for the 2 days last week on Wednesday and Thursday. So it was a wonderful opportunity to learn together. A moment to pause in our busy lives and deepen our commitments as leaders in LRSD, to learn and grow, to be the leaders our communities expect. Dr. Alex Wilson, and for folks online, we can move into the agenda to learn more about Dr. Wilson's work. Dr. Alex Wilson joined us for the first day. She's an Indigenous scholar working out of Saskatchewan that has done some very important work in Manitoba and Canada and internationally in the area of Indigenous education and specifically land-based education. I found her really inspirational, and I wasn't alone, I'm sure. A phrase that is still resonating in my heart is transforming poison into medicine. Her keynote had expressed many important thoughts, deep thoughts like this one. Thoughts of growth and healing rooted in an Indigenous spirituality, philosophy, cultural traditions. The overarching theme of her keynote for me, captured by this phrase, is that a process of reconciliation involves confronting hard truths, past harms, and learning from them. And I believe, like me, my colleagues were left inspired to find the courage to be the leaders we're called on to be in our schools, to see the truth and reconciliation calls for action come to fruition. That's what I hope for us all coming out of the retreat.
Anyone else have any comments on the retreat? I know it was a very valuable experience for all of our leaders, school leaders. I will move then to the new updated organizational chart, and again, Superintendent Michalik will get us through that.
So we've made slight changes to the org chart. It's meant to be inspired by Indigenous worldviews of community and relationship. It isn't your typical hierarchical org chart. For those who crave that, who need that, we essentially leverage our information and communication technologies to create all kinds of typical org charts, letting folks know who supervises whom. This is meant to bring together the whole of the community that is there to support children, young people on their learning journey. And show relationship. And so we've made some changes. We continue to look at it collectively, collaboratively, and refine how it expresses those relationships of influence in the service of children and young people.
Good. Questions or comments? Seeing none, we thank you for that. Now we move to the School of Choice report. Assistant Superintendent Anderson will provide a report regarding the requests during the school year.
Very good, thank you. So the Schools of Choice process is governed by a provincial process, and it opens on February 1st when families can begin asking for an alternate placement for their child for the upcoming fall. Applications are due by May the 15th, and schools communicate the results of the process toward the end of May. The process does, however, include a wait list period where if there is not space available in May, students may be waitlisted until the fall when we have a better idea of numbers, whether or not they can be accommodated at their school of choice. So this table is very small. My apologies for that, but you can zoom in at your leisure. In the left-hand column, I want to draw your attention to the list of school names, 9 of which are followed by an asterisk. And those are schools that the board closed to schools of choice applications last year by board motion at the February 20th meeting. It was determined that because of enrollment pressures at these schools, under ordinary circumstances, schools of choice would be closed. But if there were compelling exceptional circumstances, the superintendent's department could grant such a request. So I did want to highlight those for you. You will see that there was a limited number of requests approved at those schools. And reasons for those types of approvals are things like the student lives in the catchment area, is transferring from French immersion to English program. It could be that the enrollment pressures are actually worse in the student's resident catchment area than in the school of choice catchment. In some cases, there are court orders related to school placement to do with custody arrangements. In some cases, because of exceptional childcare arrangements, approval was granted as well. You will see, in addition, Windsor Park Collegiate had a number of schools of choice applications approved, and that was in conjunction with a separate motion that was approved by the board. And this motion related to the realignment of Nelson McIntyre Collegiate's catchment area. And the board had given approval for keeping siblings together. So students who were entering grade 9, who should normally have gone to Nelson McIntyre Collegiate, were permitted to go to Windsor Park Collegiate if they had an older sibling already registered there. The family was attending in the same building. So this report, you will see, it's not a small number. Just about 500 applications were received, 496. The majority of those being within division, so residents of the school division looking to attend out of catchment within the school division. And we also received 89 requests from outside the school division as well.
Thank you. Questions or comments on this important topic? Yes. Leonora?
I guess the one thing I'm wondering about is Dakota Collegiate's act, and yet they accepted, what is it, 48 students. How many of those were for football? You know?
I don't know that number.
I would have to look more closely at across both with all of the schools to see what the I can provide it with the next one.
It's like, it's a class and a half for a school that's packed. So I'm just wondering if that's the cause of the high number of acceptance. Usually Glenlawn and Dakota kind of matched in terms of, you know, you take some, we'll take some kind of situation. But that seems like an awful lot of kids to put in a school that's over capacity. That's my question. Yeah. So if it's for football, first of all, how many kids are actually playing football? Because that's common knowledge that that's an acceptance pathway? And if so, like, is that something that we're concerned about in terms of numbers?
We can certainly drill into those numbers for Dakota and get a better sense of what the motivations were.
Okay, thank you.
I think, Ned Cormack has.
I would just share that we, in this process, we have had those conversations around tracking students that, and understanding the reasons that they're choosing alternate high schools, and then tracking how they're doing at their new high schools, whether it's maintaining their participation in a sporting team, or if they're attending for an AP course. There are different reasons that students are choosing different high schools. So we have, I think, had more conversation this year than ever around understanding those reasons.
Walker?
Two questions. If Dakota Collegiate's first step, I'm curious why it doesn't have an side. It doesn't have list of schools not accepting students, and how many of the students that were accepted were from another division. And so to get additional funding from Providence when we have students from another division. So for the funding portion of it, any out of division students would invoice the resident school division for the funding for that. Is there, do we need to have a conversation about the number of Dakota?
Yes, we may, we're acknowledging that we may indeed have to consider closing Dakota Collegiate to future schools of choice applications.
Does the French immersion or people changing their preference midway affect the numbers very much, or is it a negligible factor?
When you say midway, are you meaning transition between?
Yes,
elementary
yes,
and
between.
Yeah, there is a certain number. We do see that where there is a transition, like between grade 8 and grade 9, we see a higher level of attrition from the program than within K-8 at any given grade.
I'll add that would be a separate report. So what we could bring to the board is a separate report on attrition from French immersion to the English program, because the schools of choice report won't pick up on that.
Because that would generally happen.
It just
Going into high
happens, it just
school.
happens right there.
Yeah.
Like if you, and like we could provide you the data for that, because that won't, like these schools of choice aren't related to a program change. So if I'm in an LRSD school in French immersion and choose to move to the English program school, as long as that school is in catchment.
Okay, I misunderstood because I heard him say, I thought it's the siblings.
No, in fact, if we take, for example, J.H. Burns Collegiate, where you will see that there are 5 students that were accommodated on school of choice. Those were students transitioning from French immersion into English program. They are documented using school of choice and captured on that.
Okay. So we document all, so I stand corrected. I didn't think we did. I didn't know that it was automatically a schools of choice.
It's supposed to be.
Okay, just before we get to
Okay, I
Chapala,
stand corrected. I'm sorry for
Yeah.
confusing the issue.
but the numbers in our division are small, whereas other divisions, that's the loss or what I'm looking for, the attrition from the French immersion to the English is much higher. Is that correct?
That is correct. What we see eventually is a significant loss over the course of the program. Many, well, I would say nearly all other school divisions, with the exception of River East Transcona, which is a French immersion high school, 9 to 12. We have Belleville and Jean Sauvé, French immersion high schools as well. In other school divisions, the course offerings at high school are not as robust in French immersion, and it makes the program less attractive and attrition from it more enticing. So we have certainly done a very enviable job in the Woodville School Division at building a solid school program that entices our students to remain.
That's what I've heard. Thank you for verifying that. We have trustee Seminyola is on the line, the question? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the questions that I had, Trustee Sigerson already asked. I guess my other question, maybe this is even for a later date when you when you do a deep dive in that data, is although it doesn't affect our division numbers, when you see that change from French immersion to English in grade 8 and 9, it does impact the high school numbers. So I guess my question is that, is all that change that we're seeing, systemic change that we're seeing now, factored into our year-to-year projections that we have seen going into 2027 to 2030?
Yes, we have historic data related to attrition from French immersion into English program, and those trends have been reflected in the modeling for population projections going forward.
Thank you. My second question is maybe Jamie will know this number off the top. We're talking about outside division applying to come into our division as a school of choice. Do we have numbers of how many students we're seeing, especially at the high school level, that are applying to other school divisions, that where we're getting invoiced by other school divisions? Do we have that number? And how does it relate to the number that we're accepting?
I don't have the number of the expenditures, but I can get that information and come up with a total of internal students going out. But yeah, I can get that information.
No, yeah, that would be great. I just want to understand if that's a wash and how do we, play that in the future with that understanding. Thank you very much.
Good, so that's Little.
Yeah, so if I can just establish what it is we're bringing to the board, it's important that I understand what I'm going to ask the team to do. We're going to bring a report to you at some future date about attrition in French immersion, retention in French immersion. We're going to bring a report to you about students leaving our schools for another school division. And if we're going to go to those depths, we may as well also just look at participation rate overall in different parts of the school division. So what we're able to see is how many students how many school-age students residing in LRSD choose LRSD and how many don't. And now the dilemma is we can't know because we don't have a coordinated approach to these matters in Manitoba. We can't know without that coordinated approach where everyone is going. Is it an independent school? If they're not going to LRSD, are they choosing an independent school, homeschooling? Are they choosing, or are they choosing another school division without collecting all of that information and sharing all of that information provincially? Yes, Jeff, what did you want to say?
And looking more closely at Dakota Collegiate.
And yes, thank you. And we're also going to look more closely at Dakota Collegiate, what explains the schools of choices, and see about possibly closing that school off to schools of choice.
Would it be possible to get a number on how many students residing in LRSD are going to other divisions and how many students from other divisions are coming here, and see if those numbers
Yes, and
coincide?
and we'll
I
see what
think,
the difference is.
Mignola was wondering, and I'm wondering if it's a wash or if it's one is higher than the other, anything we can do about that.
Yeah, and we'll bring you a historical perspective and information specific to this last year.
Great. Thanks. Anyone clear on this topic then? Wonderful. Move on to another Very impressive morning at Marion School, a federal announcement on the National School Nutrition Program. Assistant Superintendent Cormack will give an update on the federal announcement.
So thank you to the chair and vice chair and other trustees that were able to attend on October 18th at Marion School. We were happy to welcome the Deputy Prime Minister, the Premier and other dignitaries to Marion School, and want to give a huge shout out to our facilities department who had the school in pristine condition for this important event. Also to the students and staff of Marion School who were so welcoming to all of the people that had the opportunity to attend. At that event, there was an important investment of $17.2 million over 3 years from the federal government to support food security across schools. For us, that means that 3 of our schools will see additional funds to those provided by the provincial government. I'll remind you that earlier this year, we had the announcement of $1.5 million coming to the Riel School Division from the provincial government to support food programming. So the 3 schools that have been selected by the federal government to receive additional funds are Marion School, Wolverine, and Victor Wyatt. And each will see some substantial funds going to support their food program.
Thank you. Questions or comments on this? Yes, I just want to say that it was a wonderful event, and we're very happy to see the many dignitaries come to our division and to Marion School. And it certainly is great news for our kids that get that extra food. Thanks, all now. The accessibility plan updates. Again, with Assistant Superintendent Cormack will give us an update.
You'll recall at the last update for accessibility, I talked about the need for our plan to be updated for December of this year. And part of that is to gather information from people with lived experiences. And so going out this week is an employee survey inviting entitled Learning Through Lived Experiences. And so inviting staff members to provide feedback about their experience in LRSD. There's also an opportunity if people don't want to do the form survey to reach out to us individually to set up a time to talk to someone on the committee to share their experience. Other activities of the working committee are to ensure that at each staff, in each staff building, we have a staff member who is the accessibility lead that will act as the liaison between the committee and the work that's happening there back to their school and staff. Also on the horizon is to invite more people to join the working committee, those both with lived experiences as well as voices who are not typically at that decision-making table. So stay tuned for a bit more information on that at the next update.
Good, thank you. Comments on this? Now turn to Assistant Superintendent Jean-Paul. We receive quarterly updates on the safety and health reports. So we will have that now from Assistant Superintendent Jean-Paul.
And so I want to acknowledge my co-chair, LRTA President Jay McGurran. And so the committee meets 4 times a year. October 2nd was our first meeting for the 24-25 school year. We had permission from Workplace Safety and Health Manitoba to join our committees 1 and 2. We've requested a variance for that to be the arrangement for the entirety of the 24-25 school year, but we are still waiting on approval for that. A number of items were covered in our meeting. Some of them are ongoing topics of conversation, such as our divisional comprehensive workplace safety and health programming, which includes things such as the Guarding Minds survey, which is the data collection for the survey is ongoing. The committee also had the opportunity to look at the draft of the staff communication policy and provide feedback around that. Additionally, we explored professional development that we as a team are hoping to pursue. A lot of interest around employee well-being, mental health, and psychological injury, and implications of that around workplace safety and health. Further to this, the divisional committee reviews incident reports. And so last year around this time, we made a move from paper to online reporting of incidents. And so with that being in place for around a year, the committee has been asked to canvass colleagues, find out what's working, what's not working, what could be improved. And so we're always looking at removing barriers for employees to report any incidents. As has been noted in previous reports, providing greater accessibility does naturally lead to a higher amount of reporting, but this provides us with more opportunities to understand what are the experiences of employees in the workplace. With the move of committee 2 joining committee 1, this allows some of those historically deemed higher risk areas such as practical and vocational arts, science and phys ed to be part of the general committee meeting. And so our feature lead for industrial arts provided some updates with of the work that, the work that he's doing with our workplace safety and health officer were shared by the workplace safety and health officer. Further to that, just a review of some of the ongoing incident reports. And so in reviewing of last year, the majority of the incidents that we're seeing are being reported as minor. There's a category of other, which often is what is used as folks are reporting psychological injury. As previously mentioned, Workplace Safety and Health Manitoba has not provided guidance around psychological injury in the same way that they do around physical injury in terms of what qualifies as minor, moderate, or severe. And so that's something that we continue to reach out to the province for some direction. And so that is a summary of our first committee meeting of the year.
Very much. Questions or comments? This matter? Thank you very much. We now move to, some of you have been browsing the internet and checking out our website and may have noticed a new look. We have a website refresh. Our Director of Information Technology Systems, Clark Hagan, will update us on that.
Thank you, Board Chair. So our website was just due for a little bit of a touch up. I think it was last refreshed about 5 to 6 years ago. It wasn't a, 3 to 4 years ago. It was not a major refresh, just a bit of an alignment to allow us to have a better look and feel for you're viewing the web from either your laptop or a desktop and from your mobile view. And most of the enhancements really was about giving a more mobile friendly presence, just because we know that a lot of most of our traffic is done by a mobile device. So just a very quick rundown of some of the minor enhancements is just a better, as you scroll through our website, you maintain ownership of knowing that it's actually LRSD that you are currently on. We moved some of the social media and the initial login page here at the very top banner to balance it out. And one of the bigger ones that was done about a few months ago, this was kind of like an additional bit, was that we put the menu that used to be at the very top of the page, we gave it more of a pullout from the left to give us more real estate to utilize. And what came with that is, as you go to any of the daughter pages underneath the main page, we have much more real estate width-wise to view content. Before, it had white borders on each side, and we were very, very constrained. So this just gives us more real estate. And then if I can just quickly mimic the mobile view here, if I just go to mobile device.
I did not know you could do that.
Yeah, you can. So you can make any, right now we are going to model, it's probably an iPhone, I don't know, go to iPhone 14. Here we go. So now what we can do here is, this is also the homepage on mobile here. As you can see, you scroll, we have, it just redraws instantly. If I put this into a, now if I've now rotated the phone landscape, the website automatically. It always did this, but now it does it in a more robust way that allows for a better viewing. And the one other change that you may or may not have noticed is this is such a minor thing, but it has a massive impact, is this had a very feathered border, and now it's a more solid border. So if any of these images have text in the background, it doesn't collide with what the main message of the story is supposed to be. Again, minor changes, but I think it actually gave it a much better appeal and much better mobile view. And so this came from requests from different people, also from Christian, saying, better, and we could. So we're very proud of our website. We think it actually has a great look and feel.
It looks really good.
Questions or comments on that? Good. Thank you for that. Good line. No. And that brings us down to the similar matter of the monthly updates regarding communications metrics. Michelle, tell us about that.
Well, your monthly updates have looked similar for some time, and I promised we would start changing them up and just going deeper into specific communications. So this first report for you, and it'll look different next month, I promise. We're looking at the parent posts from the very first parent post in November of 2018 to the most recent post, if you go right to the second last page. So metrics on each post. Since the last one this past October, and a final page that summarizes some of the changes we've seen relative to these metrics that we're providing. And so I'm always encouraging our small communications team to look at the metrics we collect on any given medium we're deploying, to learn from that. And so it's also what's interesting in the metrics we see here is that when an email bounces back because an email address is no longer valid, it helps us, if we're attentive to this as a communications team, it allows us to make the mail list more valid and reliable. It's just one example of how metrics are helpful. And unlike some of the other mediums we use, in the case of this email, we can see how people are engaging with the communication. Are they actually going deeper with the hyperlinks that we're providing? And this is an example.
Just a conversation.
I was gonna wait till it's done. Not that, it's not super important, but that chart at the bottom right is interesting. That to what extent do you think is speculating that is indicative of the demographic picture of the LRSD parent community, or just of the parent community that is email users?
That's right. It essentially matches that parent community.
Yeah.
So that average age of a parent in LRSD tracks,
Well, team 35 to 41.
Makes sense. We had a grant. Holy wait. So any other questions or comments on that? Good to see we're getting a lot of eyeballs and clicks. We're engaging, so that's nice to see. Now at number 7, we have a lot of policy to discuss today. So we'll begin at 7.1, the Policy Review Committee update. This is ratification of an amendment. This is Superintendent Anderson will give us context. The board motion will be, well, perhaps I'll let Superintendent Anderson to give us the context, and then we'll do the motion.
Sure, very good, thank you. As you are aware, MSBA and MTS reached a provincial collective agreement for teachers. Certain existing board policies confer benefits to teachers that go beyond the provincial collective agreement. And a particular concern are those related to leaves. The school division has consulted with Manitoba School Boards Association, who has shared with us their view that provincial collective agreement is intended to bring harmony in practice among divisions, and that if divisional policy confers additional leaves to one division and not another, it really is at the detriment of the intention of the provincial collective agreement. With that information in hand, senior leadership team members met with LRTA to share our intention moving forward to bring to your meeting this evening recommendation that 2 policies be amended and that 1 policy be rescinded. So the 2 policies that we're recommending for amendment are teaching and non-teaching staff leaves and absences related to graduation ceremonies, and teaching and non-teaching staff leaves and absences related to citizenship ceremonies. In each of these cases, our existing policy confers a half-day paid leave to all employees to attend either a graduation ceremony for themselves or for their child who is graduating from high school, college, or university. With respect to citizenship ceremonies, it's similar. All employee groups are entitled to a half day in order to attend citizenship ceremony for themselves. Essentially, when our newcomer employees, permanent residents, are able to take the step from permanent residency to Canadian citizenship. So the amendments that you will see before you this evening for these 2 policies still underline the importance of staff engaging in their own or their children's graduation ceremonies and in their citizenship ceremonies, but just realigning these policies with the wording of the collective agreement. And that would be that teachers who are taking leave for either graduation or citizenship ceremonies would need to do so as personal leave or extracurricular leave, as outlined in Articles 7.07 and 6.04 of the Provincial Collective Agreement. Provisions for non-teaching staff would remain the same. So this is really just about ensuring that our divisional policies are not conferring an additional benefit on LRSD teachers that will not be found in other school divisions.
Good, thank you. So again, we've been seeing this the last few meetings. These are amendments and changes to our policies to bringing them into alignment with the collective agreement. The motion is that following policies be amended. GCCAB-GDCB, teaching and non-teaching leaves and absences, graduation ceremonies, and GCCAG-GDCG, teaching and non-teaching leaves and absences, citizenship ceremonies. So we have a mover and a seconder for these changes. Trustee Nordheim, Trustee Nemeth, was that a hand up?
Could be, yep.
And call the question. All those in favor?
Still loading, sorry, Jamie.
Anybody
Yes.
hand up? Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Still loading.
That carries. Thank you. And then I think we've already had the explanation for the second one.
It just needs a
Oh, sure,
brief
by all
addition
means,
here.
you bet,
So
you
with
bet.
respect to educational leave, this is a different nature of leave that was only granted to employees hired on a teacher contract. So this leave, again, does not have any equivalent in the provincial collective agreement. And rather than amend this leave, because it's not about a half day or a short period of time, it's about an extended leave to complete studies. We would instead be recommending that this policy be rescinded. And certainly there are provisions in the provincial collective agreement for long-term leaves of absence that can be accessed for teachers that would like to do so.
Very good. So we have the motion that policy GCCAF / GCCBF, teaching staff leaves and absences, educational leave be rescinded. We have a mover and a seconder, moved by trustee Carrier, trustee Nordheim. Questions or comments? Sorry. Online? No. Call the question. All those in favor?
Just a point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Did you second, say trustee Nordheim is recorded as Nemeth?
Trustee Which?
My apologies.
Seconded.
I,
Okay.
that's my
Just wanted to check.
second. Sorry, I heard, there we go, better.
I'll have to get the
Yeah.
folks online in.
No, it's
Next
because
one,
I had
next one.
said it's because I had said second. Maybe Jimmy might have just heard me and click somebody else me. Thank you.
Yeah, so
There
it's,
we go. Councillor Hart.
we're good?
Yep.
Okay, sorry, apologies.
Don't worry.
Mine says voting in progress.
In favor?
Yes.
It's carried as well. Move then to, this is a matter that's going for third reading. Just lost it. Perhaps Superintendent Anderson can lead us through this one as well.
Yes, so this relates to the ministerial directive that school divisions need to adopt policy related to the use of cell phones in schools for both students and staff. And as you're aware, you did first reading to this policy at your first board meeting of the year on September the 3rd, and second reading followed on October the 1st. October the 1st. So now we're coming to you this evening asking for a third reading for this policy. And in the supplementary information that is provided to you trustees, at the last meeting, you were provided a summary of feedback that was received. We did have very robust engagement from our community who weighed in on what they thought about the policy, and whether they were in support or felt that changes were needed. I did just want to draw your attention to the fact that the information that was reported at the last meeting undercounted student voice. So you have a revised report. What had happened was we had a number of teachers who completed the survey on behalf of their classroom of 27 grade 7 and 8 students.
That makes sense.
And when we were doing the data analysis, we didn't give those students equal weight. They should count for 27. It's a class of 27. So you will see in this that the proportion of students that engaged has increased from what was reported last time. And it, I think, is a level of engagement that we can be quite proud of to see that of the 1,411 folks that provided feedback in the first round, 23% were students, 59% were staff, and another 17% were parents or guardians. Now, you have also received a new report on the second round of feedback. So we have continued after you adopted second reading to receive input on the second version of the policy. And we still had some folks who were contributing based on the first version. We took all of those comments together and there were another 461 of them. Overall, what we heard in the second round was that 52% of respondents felt that the policy is good to go, adopted as it is. Another 33% felt minor revisions were needed, and 14% felt that major revisions were needed. And based on comments that people were sharing, these are generally people who are philosophically opposed to the notion of a cell phone ban. That is out of our control. This was a ministerial directive that we were following. So that unfortunately is an agree to disagree situation. But what I can share related to the feedback, this has been a very meaningful process, very helpful. Folks caught some really good points that, from as simple of as we said guideline B, but we should have said guideline C. Nice detail to pick up on. But another one was we had lost in policy prohibiting the use of cell phones in washrooms and change rooms. That was in a much earlier version of the policy and got lost along the way. So that has been included in the version that is before you this evening for third reading, as is clarification around use of cell phones during lockdowns. And we have some very clear information from RCMP around the fact that cell phones must not be used during a lockdown. So that is by students and by staff only for emergency communications. So that has been included as well. So I do just want to say that overall, the two rounds, we have had nearly 1,900 responses, which is the most significant level of engagement in the policy development process that I have ever been involved in. So I'm very, very enthused about that. And I think it is a topic that many felt was important to them. So I would invite you to consider the changes for approval this evening. The next steps following approval of the third reading of the policy will be then that each school will need to finalize their common cell phone practices and communicate those out to families and students and staff, making sure that everyone is on the same page. And we will be submitting our finalized policy to the province who would like to receive that by November the 1st.
Good, thank you. So we have a motion that policy GBEF /JICJ, use of cell phones in schools reviewed by policy review committee, receive third and final reading and finally be adopted. A mover and a seconder. I think we've been ignoring the folks online. Anyone online wants to chip in?
Finally, I'm kidding.
Trustee Semignolo?
Yeah.
And Trustee Turner, second?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I know this has been a long time coming. Do you have any comments or questions for this policy? Yes, Mr. Palmquist.
I just wanted to start by thanking Jeff for the great presentation, and I totally agree with this consultation. I think that in particular, the evidence of heavy participation from students is and young people in the division is really encouraging. And it is a little conjecture and maybe speculating a little bit, but I feel as though the generations that are perhaps most immersed in online culture and cell phone use and the ubiquity of this technology are perhaps the ones who are most eager to find a path out from, you know, under it in some cases and in some ways. And I think that the fact that the demographic group that was, you know, really had least opposition to it, in fact, was students. And the third round of consultation is really revealing and interesting. I guess I wanted to, I'm gonna support this. And I wanted to sort of just add, kind of following up to my comments before, that I think that into the future, we should consider and take the opportunity to consider the role that we play as a division in continuing to reinforce the culture of ubiquity of mobile devices and technology, with the use of apps, with the use of specifically, it's like cellular cell phone based tools that are essential for communication between schools and parents and community members. I think that we have to take a hard look at the role that we play and whether or not I get, because as a person who has things on my phone like called like Wazoo or Blackboard or Wonky Donk or whatever it is that the latest app is that you have to download when you start a new year. I know these apps are designed with some of the same predatory principles embedded into them that the major social media apps have. They use push notification. They use dopamine seeking reward systems. They are built on the same type of manipulative psychological strategy that the mainstream apps are. And so I think that as we support, as we adopt this policy and as we go forward with individual schools developing their own, I think it's I hope this isn't the end of the conversation. I hope that we continue to examine our own role in this, our own responsibility for cell phone addiction and the difficulty it is from getting out from under it, and that this isn't the end of this conversation.
Yeah.
Anyone else? So with that, we'll call the question. All those in favor?
Mine is still loading. I vote yes.
Very good, thank you.
Still loading. Yes. or no?
Travel too.
Yes.
Lunar
We've got
fixed
some
it.
raised hands. I think we have to get some
Yeah.
unanimous vote. Thank you. Now that it's passed, I just would like to say that as a political science, poli-sci wonk, this has been a fascinating and wonderful experience or example of how things work in a policy and governing way. We have the provincial government that has that doesn't specify what we're supposed to do, but the direction that we should go, and then it comes to our board, and we have our wonderful committee that works very hard. And we have input, which I've never seen at such a level before, and board participation. This has come before us several times, and we've had very robust conversations about what we believe should be in there, and we've reviewed the input from our public participation. That's gone back. That's been distilled, and then changes have been made and brought forward. First reading, second reading. Now we're at the third reading, and adopted, and now we have to send it back to the schools. It's wonderful just to see all of the participation and all of the steps and levels that it takes to come up with something that we can all live with, and it's going to work for all of us. So hats off to the committee, and hats off to Superintendent Anderson, and to all the people who participated. That's my editorial for today, and the final one is the Policy Review Committee update for policy KLG, and I'll turn that over to Superintendent Corman.
Thank you. You'll recall that on June 18th of this 2024, you adopted policy KLG, school relations with police services. I'm just bringing you a brief update that we're now on to section 3 procedures, where we now have the responsibility to create a school board and police board protocol that will direct school leaders as we engage with police or police services engage with us. And so to that end, you'll see in the policy the various groups that will be engaging in this work. This won't be short work, and so what we are planning to do in the meantime is to create a very brief directive for school leaders to rely on in the meantime while this larger document is under development, so that leaders know what to do in those moments right now if they need to contact police services or if police services is initiating contact with them, so that there's a common place from which we're working. And so we hope to have that completed in the next couple of weeks. There is a small committee that's working on that of clinical services team members, school leaders, and senior leadership members. And then that will be taken to the broader leadership team for input and questions. And I'll certainly share that with you as we continue to move forward in the development of this protocol.
Thank you for that information and that update. Questions or comments on that? It's another example of policy making and all it takes to get to the final product. So thank you for that. And then we move to correspondence. First of all, the school board correspondence that we have received. It's here in at number 8.1. Haven't been asked to separate anything out for discussion, so we'll accept those. And at 8.2, we have the Manitoba School Boards Association correspondence that we have received. Again, nothing has been requested to hold up for discussion, so those will all be added to our minutes. That leaves number 9 as action items. We have going back to us again is bylaw 2024-2025-001 religious instruction. This is at École Van Bellingham, and this will be the 3rd reading. And can I have context from this again from Superintendent Anderson?
Yes, this is a process that is entrenched in the Public Schools Act, whereby if a certain number of parents request religious instruction in a school, that the board must consider providing space and time for this instruction to occur. So you have previously given this 1st and 2nd reading. It's coming to you this evening for 3rd reading. And I can share that during the reading process, because there have been other occasions where this process has been more rapid, where more than one reading has occurred at a time. I need the board to know that in the meantime, the school division has consulted with provincial officials around this process and with the school around the ability to accommodate. École Van Bellingham is currently, as you know, significantly above population. Their enrollment is putting enormous pressures on space in the building. There are no student services spaces remaining. An additional classroom was created out of a portion of the library. The fact is that finding space to offer this program is challenging, but I understand in conversation with Principal back home that she has been able to do so.
So just for everyone's knowledge, we are mandated by statute to accommodate this if certain criteria are met, if it's able to be accommodated. And that was the stumbling block in this particular one, which brought it to the 3rd reading, and now that has been settled that it can be accommodated.
Correct.
So again, not sure if I read this already, but I don't think I did. Motion is that bylaw 2024-2025-001, being a bylaw to authorize the instruction of religion at École Van Bellingham during the 2024-2025 school year, receive 3rd reading and finally be adopted. We're in a seconder for this today. trustee Nemeth, trustee Walker. All those in favor? Voting's in progress. So we have them all. Seems unanimous consent and is adopted. Thank you very much. We now move to the public question period. We've arrived at the public question period. Verified virtual participants, verified in-person participants can bring forward questions for clarification regarding items on today's agenda. So we have two folks in here. No questions today? Questions today? Anyone online that, you have verified people online?
No, we don't.
You don't, okay. Well, thank you, thank you for your attendance. And then we lead to adjournment. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much. We do have to come